So I think the screen is visible. Okay, so let us begin our third session in ICT design. And today we want to look at developing business/information technology strategies. This must be a topic that is quite familiar to all of us. It's nothing new. Like I said at the very beginning, this module is simply a component of all the others. It is fed by all the others: enterprise architecture, ICT management, strategy development and policy, and so on and so forth. It's simply a component. So most of these, most of the topics that we cover, the sessions, are just a reminder of what we had done before. Essentially, when you're coming to design your ICT artifacts within the organization, by the time you come to design, to select and implement, you would have been guided by all these other activities, all these other skills that we are picking up: enterprise architecture, ICT policy and strategy, and so on and so forth. You've been guided by those. So this is simply on feeding it's feeding the design process. So today we want to remind ourselves, this is the session that we shall focus on, reminding ourselves of this particular topic of strategy development. To begin with this, we are going to start with looking at planning, the planning process, because all of it starts with planning. Previously we looked at benchmarking. We saw with benchmarking, planning was part and parcel. So planning remains a component in everything that we are doing. Then we come to planning and business models. We want to look at planning and business models. If we look at strategies and business models go hand in hand. Then we're going to look at change management. This is a big factor within ICT design, where a disruption is going to happen. And because of that disruption, we must manage any naysayers or any negativity, or that disruption does not interfere with processes and procedures or with the business objectives. Then we want to understand the importance of business and IT alignment. So let's start with planning. So first thing is, what is planning? So these are simply preparation steps. You want to do something, and as I'm preparing myself to do it, before I start, I begin to prepare myself. This is planning. And we all do it in one way or the other. I'm going to meet someone, I first have a plan. How am I going to leave from point A to point B? When I meet this person, what is the objective of the meeting? What should I expect should be the content? What is the background to all of this? That is planning. So when we are coming to ICT design and selection, the planning process is extremely important. But not just planning for the design itself, but planning for the background that is there, that's ICT strategies and alignment to business goals and so on and so forth. So the plan is a map. So when we actually think of all these other things, the business models, developing the ICT strategy and so on and so forth, we're actually developing a map that will lead to ICT design. So when properly followed, this plan can help the organization or the individual or specific unit achieve its goals and remain on course. So the planning process begins with identification of goals and objectives, formulating strategies, arrange and create steps to achieve those objectives, then implement. Implement direct, and monitor. These are the 4 steps. Specifically, organizational planning. What is it? What is organizational planning? First, you start by identifying those organizational goals that need to be achieved. And nothing does that best like a strategy, a business model. Yeah, a strategy and a business model. The overall organizational strategy is what informs us of what are the overall organizational goals. This is where we begin to identify the overall organizational goals. Then the ICT goals are developed from those. How ICT can help the organization achieve those goals. That is what we refer to as ICT alignment. Now, after identifying them and formulating them, we monitor specific objectives to achieve them. So this involves staffing and resource allocation. So here we have a very simple diagram which articulates this process. Yeah, which articulates this process. And this process, if you remember ICT strategy or strategy, that overall strategy development, general strategy development, these steps are not new. You start by analyzing the organization's current environment. Then you look at the internal and external developments. Then evaluate accomplishments and resources. Yeah, this step is normally referred to as the SWOT analysis and understanding who you are. Then we come to team building, modeling, and consensus. Consensus basically in understanding what these goals are, what our internal strengths and weaknesses, what is the external environment, what are our competitors doing, what is the environment all about. Then we establish, here we agree, the team agrees on what is the vision, mission, goals, and objectives. Based on these 4, strategies are then developed. These strategies are developed hand in hand with policies and then tactics. Tactics are basically how do we achieve each specific goal. Based on these, you articulate a plan for the organization, then develop implementation methods and controls. These, finally, are the ones which later on, when we're evaluating or seeking for maturity and re-evaluation, these are what we evaluate. They provide feedback later on when you are renewing your strategies. Do we have any questions so far? Do you have any questions so far?
Yes, Doctor, on my side.
Yes, Teresa?
No question, Doctor.
Okay, thank you. So we have different types of planning, and the diagram above previously alluded to some of these. The first is strategic planning. So this one is now creation of those strategies that will help us achieve the goals we had identified. Then the tactical planning is meant to support strategic development, to support strategic planning, because here you are concerned with translating those strategic plans into specific plans for a distinct area of. So if it's an overall strategic plan, then you have maybe now you have a tactical plan for specific areas, if it is production, if it is marketing, if it is in management, you have those tactical plans for each area to ensure that each area is being handled, or rather feels the impact of the strategic objectives. Then we have operational planning. This one is for the lower level. So if you notice, the strategic plan is overall overarching for the entire organization or department. Tactical is for specific, for those different components that make up the overall organization. And then operational is at the lowest level, looking at processes and procedures. Yeah, ensuring that at the lowest level, we are now each process and procedure is geared towards achieving that overall organizational goal. So what is an IT strategy? This one we already know. We have talked about, we have discussed it. We know what it is. So we know that we have the overall organizational strategy, which is defined to achieve specific goals. The IT strategy is simply an alignment to the overall business strategy. Okay? It's aligned to, and it demonstrates the close relationship between technology and the business. That close relationship where the support comes in to achieve those organizational objectives. So a key point, some key reminders, is that an ICT strategy is a living document, so it is constantly updated. Hence, if we go back to our diagram, while we have a point when we come to the end where we have feedback to the initial stages, so that it is constantly in a growth process. So there are two basic approaches to developing an IT strategy or an ICT strategy. So the first is a classic one, and the classic one involves basically some long-term views, starting with identifying the business capabilities. Yeah. And how in the next, for a certain specific period of time, and how the organizational strategy and it may be realized. Now, the objective now of the ICT policy is to assess the current gap, where the organization is and where it wants to go. Where is the gap? Where is it that they have not yet reached that vision? So from that point on, ICT then looks for where it can support. Yeah. So let's say if we had a diagram, which we have current state, yeah, CS, the current state, and then you have the future state where you want to go, which is the goals, the vision, future state. So in between here, the current state, you'd have identified gaps. Gaps that are stopping you from getting to this point. So ICT, the IT strategy, is now targeting these gaps and saying, where can we come in to support this organization gets where it needs to be? And this is what the ICT strategy becomes. The ICT or IT strategy comes in saying ICT can come in by maybe building a better infrastructure for all the departments. Maybe currently now they are not communicating well, having better applications that will ease communication and information sharing. Maybe introducing some online services and so on and so forth. So this is where the ICT strategy comes in. And the objective here is to get to the overall organizational goals or the future vision where they want to go. So this is what we refer to as alignment. Alignment. We are aligning the ICT to the overall organizational strategy. So this is essentially, most of this information is essentially what we have just discussed for you previously. So within the strategy itself, the ICT strategy or IT strategy, there are always 5 pillars. Again, this is a repeat of ICT strategy. You have the application, integration strategy, infrastructure, service, and sourcing. So the application is looking at any IT application that the organization can use to support. Yeah. How does the ICT department be guided on how to deal, on how to identify, select, and implement any application to support the overall business strategy. Integration is how these applications will work together across departments. The infrastructure is those guidelines that will help the department optimize what they have and make any new investment. So service here, the policy would be looking at the organizational customers, how they'll get each services. And the customers could be the employees and anyone else, any other stakeholder. Then source strategy this is where you determine anything that is not produced in-house, how shall we handle that? And if there's something produced in-house, how will that be handled? So again, this one, the planning process of strategic development, this is also again something not new, and it very much follows overall business strategy development, starting with the environment, understanding the environment, what kind of business we are in, what objectives, what is the overall objectives. Then we come to alignment process, aligning the ICT towards the organizational objectives. Then after that, we come to how shall we implement this strategy. Then we come to the 4th stage, which looks at initiatives, ICT initiatives. How you will actually begin, not just implementing, but you are now breaking this implementation process into smaller sections, scenarios. And this one now even comes with the cost implication and resources and timing. The final one is define the budget to implement initiatives. Implement the initiatives so that you're actually now making the strategy a living document, an operational document within the organization. The second approach is scenario approach. So micro worlds are created, a smaller world. So you have, unlike the classic approach, which starts with a generic, this one, a smaller micro world is created. So a number of business scenarios are created, and they are created by teams within the organization. Several teams are created, and then they create these scenarios. Yeah, and a variety of variety of development trends. What are the current? What would be stated would be things like, what are the current developments within these different micro worlds, and what are the trends? What are the environmental scenarios? Okay. So here, within these different teams, these different micro worlds. So imagine the micro world, it would probably be at if it was, let's say, someone in the marketing department. A person in the marketing department has a different view from that of finance. But this scenario, however, the scenario created by somebody in finance actually points out what is currently existing in the finance department. They know where the organization needs to go, but they actually already identify the gaps within that area. So finance, the team which is probably finance-led, will bring out those gaps. Same thing with the marketing department. So in these different scenarios, after they've created them, they begin to rank them based on which is the lowest need and two, which is the highest need. So this is now creating a feasibility plan, or is trying to point out what needs to be dealt with first before anything else. What needs to be dealt with first? That with the highest priority is the strategy that the ICT department selects, then the medium and the lowest taking the lowest rank. So this one is quite different because it's looking at section by section, and these different micro worlds or departments or sections within the organization are now developing it at the innermost level. So either one of them will still lead to the ICT strategy that we had previously looked at. This, whatever the case, it will lead to a development of a strategy that includes these 5 pillars. So after this, we come to the strategy implementation. Again, if we remember, if we have followed this particular process of planning, we should be able to come to the section of implementation. Now, the implementation of this strategy also requires change management. We are going to come to change management as well, because it's going to disrupt. It is going to disrupt. So the implementation part also requires planning in order for us to be able to achieve our strategic goals and objectives. It is essential that while you're doing strategic implementation, to be, first of all, realistic, very, very realistic about what is achievable and what is not achievable. 2, ensure that you have resource allocation. Resources must be available for you to implement this. Reward structure. You must have a reward structure. Why? This involves change, and in change management, we should be able to reward those who have embraced, some kind of recognition. Now, the change management is for anyone who perceives a threat. A person who perceives a threat towards what is being done. And this change management includes continuous engagement with key stakeholders, continuously communicating the changes that are being made and why they are being made and the positive outcome of this change. So the main steps in implementation is first of again, planning. Planning is the first step. Then resource allocation, ensuring that those resources are available. Then creating strategy, encouraging policies. If we just go back to our module ICT strategy and policy planning, policies essentially help to operationalize our strategies. So you need to have policies in place to keep these things active. But however, also just from experience, and I'm sure most of you have seen, many times we develop these strategies and policies, but they remain on paper. But to actually make them living documents, not just something that you only pull out when it's time for the auditor or to beat someone's head over when you want to win an argument within the organization. Employ best policies and programs for constant improvement. Then the reward structure. Recognize anyone who achieves an objective because they have implemented. They have actually followed through. There must be strategic leadership. Yeah, making use of strategic leadership. So you have we have members within the organization who lead the strategy. One is management. Yeah. Then you should have sponsors within, those people who within, especially not necessarily in the ICT part, but within the different departments, those whose role is to encourage others, to give testimony, to encourage others in following through with these implementations. So, based on that, we want to remind ourselves again on strategy development. I think most of you in Kampala know this bookshop. Yeah? I haven't been in Kampala in a long time, but I think it should be there. Yes, Eric?
No, doctor. I was saying it's still there.
It's still there, yes.
Yeah.
So, you are going to develop a strategy for a restock. Basically, based on this main objective. Yeah, based on this main objective. So we want to remind ourselves of strategy development. So based on that, develop a strategic plan for a restock. And this is a group project. Okay. Do you have any questions so far?
Yeah, yes, doctor.
Yes, please.
Okay. Good morning, doctor and team.
Good morning, Dennis.
Yes. I have one question, doctor. We talked of strategic plans, objectives, and operational plans. Doctor, if we look at in institutions, quite often change management becomes quite difficult because of the conflict between these two.
Yes.
Now, take an example. There's quite a number of banks which have a strategic objective of going digital, fully digital, maybe within 3 to 4 years.
Yes.
That's the objective. While at the same time, they have operational plans of increasing walk-in customers, expanding branch networks,
yes,
and hiring more counter staffs. Now, doctor, this becomes a challenge, for example, as the strategic plan progresses, yeah, how to manage this change while the operational plans are also being implemented.
Yes.
So my ask is, how do we align strategic and operational plans?
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dennis. Actually, as you were talking about it, I was just thinking about that specific objective for banks to go fully digital, maybe in the next 3 to 5 years. And as you are saying it, I just thought of something. Something that happened this side. one of our factories here, the tea factories, yeah. So a tea factory receives green leaf. It may have its own gardens, or it may receive from farmers referred to as outgrowers. So, the farmer takes the green leaf, and then the factory pays the farmer for the green leaf supplied. So one of its customers is the farmer. Then it has its employees. So at a certain point, I think there is some policy, something happened, I'm not sure. Maybe those in Kampala may know better. They reached a point there they were not accepting with mobile money services, they were not accepting transfers to be made by agents to individuals. I don't know if any of you experienced that. At a certain point, sometime earlier, was it earlier this year or late last year? Something like that happened. But anyways, there was an agent here, one of the big agents who the factory was using to make transfer payments for farmers and for some employees. Some employees have bank accounts, others don't. So in other words, some farmers are unbanked. Yeah, some farmers are unbanked. That becomes a challenge. And also some employees are also unbanked. That we're talking about the conventional banks. So I was just thinking, as you are asking the question, how do we align? Well, the first question is, in going digital, completely digital, what's the first thing the bank should do? What is the first thing the bank should do? It should have customers, yeah? That is my first thinking. It should have actual clients who are banking with them. Is this going to be done online? And even then, to transition from the physical to the digital, it's also a transitional process. That is the first thing. So my thinking then is just some thought, then we listen to Winfred. My thinking then is that these banks in the operational must first get clients, and which clients are not yet digital. That is my thinking. That's why the operational plans are first targeting that. That's my thinking. Winfred, do you have thoughts on that? Winfred?
Yes, doctor.
Yes, please.
Morning, doctor.
Good morning to you.
Hey, I'm sorry I had to interfere somehow, but there is something I wanted to bring to the attention.
Yes, please.
The class that as we are doing this module, let's always put it in mind that we are also having the component of enterprise architecture.
Yes.
And so when we are talking about strategic plannings, let them be technical cooperation or whatever it is, the issue is when we look at enterprise architecture as it is, for it is about alignment. And so before you go for any venture, we always have to understand, what do we want? Who are we first and foremost? Now, as you go on asking questions, you end up getting the answers to the gap analysis. Now you understand what you are and what you want. So what is lacking? Now, if I may answer Dennis's question about the strategic alignment being interfered with by the operation. You realize that strategic is high level. These are high level. managers or officers. So they think on behalf of everybody in the organization. And so once they lay out exactly what is needed, some of these things are brought in because of poor methodologies. There is no proper plan. That is why you see there is a lot of mixing organizations. People are mixed up. They don't have a proper focus. And so enterprise architecture comes in to play that crucial role. We must have a focus and we all have a target. What do we want as an organization? And so we have to do everything possible to entice whoever we feel is important to understand that the organization is moving this way. So we all need to move this way. I don't know if I've summarized it. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Winfred. Dennis, I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yeah, Doctor, I also love how Winfred is a lover of TOGAF. I love it. Every time she comes in, she brings an example of enterprise architecture. So good. Thank you so much. I think I'm aligned. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now we come to another topic within this section, which is business models. So in understanding a business model, it's basically an idea. That's what a concept is. A concept. It's an idea. But it's a very concrete idea with not just vague, but it can be clearly articulated and its logic spelled out. That's the business model. So it's basically spelling out the logic of any business. The logic of any business, it's the business model clearly spells it out. And the objective of the business model is to show how you're going to achieve the overall objective, which is profit. Yeah? Profit, how you intend to create value from your core business. How you intend to make money by delivering value. So a business model will clearly define what you're offering as a service or product, what value it will provide, who the customers are, what's your target market, how you intend to generate this value, what are the resources, what is the business architecture, from the beginning all the way up to the delivery of a service whose market is also clear. Yeah, so that's the purpose of a business model. Now we also have, because we're in the area of ICT, we also have e-business models. Yeah, e-business models. And these e-business models include a strategic part, the resources necessary, and the technology architecture. Includes all these 4 parts. The technology architecture is composed of 2 sections, e-business application and the infrastructure. Yeah. The first 2, strategies and processes, stem from the overall strategies and business processes. But the strategy, or again, if we go back, if we're now looking at e-business strategies, we are generating the overall business strategies into ICT strategies. Then these are then translated into the processes, internal processes that are going to be carried out. What are the challenges with implementing e-business strategies. So first of all, we note the key term change. We note the key term change because change means disruption. And if we're talking about disruption, what is it we are disrupting? One are the business processes. So go back and think of the example of a restock, which you have as your case study. There is the current situation, the way we are doing things, which we now want to disrupt. So we're not just disrupting the internal environment, the organization. So you may be thinking of that manager who may not want to change. You may be thinking of the salesperson who doesn't want to go online, but also think of the customer. Think of the customer. The customer's way of thinking is also going to be disrupted. I remember recently I was thinking of purchasing something. So I first saw it online. Then the old shepherd kicked in and said, am I going to risk and buy something I haven't seen physically? What if it arrives and I'm disappointed? I said, let me first, I may see something online, but I must go and visit the shop physically. So there's also disruption for your regular customer. We have new customers, the younger generation. You imagine if Aristoc also did just want to sell physical books, but also wanted to sell soft copy books. So I remember sometime back I was my nephew was telling me how he was downloading novels to read. And I kept thinking, at my age, would I get let's say, my smartphone or a tablet and I begin to read a novel? I remember that from my young days, getting a novel and reading it, the pleasure of just opening pages. Would I just experience the same joy with an ebook? Those are questions that run through my mind. So also, the way things are, you're not just thinking of change for the internal part, but also for your customers, those changing those business processes. You may have a disruption to the organizational structure. Then management roles also change, employee assignments, stakeholder relationships. So all these are things that must be considered with e-business strategies and business models. So the change can generate fear and resistance. So one of the key points to reduce on this risk is one, training and education. Once you educate someone, once you train them, the fear reduces, the fear of the unknown. Then end user involvement in organizational changes. So here we come to the topic of change management, because this is a key point in ensuring that our project is accepted. So we are going to look at one of those methodologies, Prosky's three-phase change management methodology. So we start with phase one, which includes 3 steps. First, defining your change management strategy. Again, everything starts with a plan. Define your change management strategy. So in our change management, for example, we may want we may plan and say, okay, a change is going to happen. Who's going to be affected by it? We start by defining who is going to be affected by it. How will they be affected? What will be the impact? Some impact may mean someone losing their job. Someone, for others, it may be more tasks are added to them, others, it may be tasks are reduced, that kind of thing. Eh? Now, of course, you don't work alone. You also prepare the team that is going to help you manage this change. Then you develop a sponsorship model. So a sponsorship model is extremely important because these are the key people in the areas where the impact is going to be made that are going to help promote that change in the different sections where this change is going to happen. So phase 2 is managing change. So developing change plans. So the first was defining, the second now is actually developing the plan. Then take action and implement. Yeah. So here you'd have a timetable, you'd have developed whatever resources you need, be it soft copy, whatever it is that needs needed. Then you actually implement. So phase 3 is reinforcing. So in phase 2, the change is actually happening. You're actually making the change. And you're carrying out trainings. The sponsors are taking leadership role and encouraging others and so on and so forth. So after this phase 2, we come to phase 3, where we must enforce. So in enforcing, we start by getting feedback from those who are now going through the change. We get feedback and we analyze. How do they feel about the new process? Are they finding it easy, hard? Is it producing any good result? If it's not, we find that it's not producing results. This is where we diagnose gaps. Okay, where is it? Why is it not changed? Why is it not producing? We go back and re-engineer. Then we manage any resistance that we may have, that may be coming up. We implement our corrective measures, and if there's any success, we celebrate it. So far, any question? Yes, Winfred.
Thank you, Doctor. As you're talking about change management, there is something that came to my mind.
Yes, please.
Now, I have realized that most of our IT initiatives that are always being done in our organizations, people are always mixing up what we call stakeholder engagement and then change management.
Okay.
I witnessed that there was this system that was introduced, we all know it, this one of giving receipts, cameras,
yes.
giving receipts, the EPS.
Yes.
And so while we were in that engagement meeting of the introduction of those receipts, I remember the ministry came and they were explaining how the police is there, they have the MAJE, they have the government, everything is supported, so the system has to work. And so to some of us who are knowledgeable about what when it comes to system implementations, you realize that if you take some things for granted, you pay. Very good system to be watered down just because you did poor stakeholder management. Now, while we were trying to explain these things to some of these officials, one thing I realized that first and foremost, they were not even the right people for the job. They themselves, and then they said, we can do this. After all, the government is supporting it. It will work. The police is there. We shall arrest them. Well, we were trying to show them cause for a review that this be done the better way if at all we need results.
Yes.
And one thing I realized from their actions, they felt that we are being what? We are not supporting the system.
Yes.
Now, I will try to explain that for this system to be effective, we first needed to understand our context as Uganda.
Yes.
What can we do as Uganda? And then even before you reach there, what are the people saying? Because this system is not yours. For you people, you're going to watch, they call it whitelisting their cars. For them, they whitelist their cars in their databases, and it is the local man to suffer.
Yes.
So that local man has to be engaged from the word go and show cause why there is need for a revolution. You need to change some of the, because we are going digital. It is undeniable. Things have changed, and whether you like it or not, you have to be there. But how do we go there without wasting time, without wasting resources, without looking? You look like a fool every time you do a system and it's washed. You look like you are incompetent.
Yes.
So when we're trying to engage them and trying to show them that, yes, the system has come. Now for them, they got, actually they got everything and put it all together. When we talk about stakeholder engagement and then change management, people misunderstand those things. They think they all go hand in hand. So the system will be brought because the codes are working. They can easily do what they have commanded the system to do. Then they think the system will work just because they have got codes from Canada. And in Canada, they are working. They will even say that.
Yes.
In India, they are using the same system. So even as we brought the same computers, the same codings, and we expect it to also work.
Also work, yes.
And now you realize that there is a lot of confusion. And I think at the end of the day, I realized that enterprise architecture is here to stay for results to somehow be achieved.
Yes.
I know there is a lot of research also going on alignment, but one thing is for sure, we need proper directions on how to do these things. We are not just going to fall in. Now, most people come with their small thinking of, we are just going to engage them. As long as the system is working, they will have to adopt it. But they don't understand the system. They don't understand the culture. They don't understand the environment. And so it is all mixed up.
Yes. I think, Winfred, you've really given us context. Yes, Dennis.
Yes, Doctor, thank you so much once again. I just wanted to give Winfred a bit of confidence about stakeholder management and change management. Yeah, change management, it's something which is quite broad. You see, we have the system change. You see, like when you look at change management, when, for example, you're bringing a new solution, yeah, which is going to replace the old one, that process of the coding, all that, yeah, you're managing that system change. Then there is the other bit of people change attached to it. You should manage the change of the solution and also manage the change within the people, the stakeholders. Yeah. So just to give a little bit more confidence to Winfred, is stakeholder management is a critical component of change management because any successful change requires stakeholder engagement, and there must be buy-ins. Any successful change, yeah. So you cannot talk about the two as things which are different. But however, stakeholder management is broader, as you've said, and it can surely apply independently in projects and programs. But in change management, we surely need to align stakeholders to manage them very, very well.
Yes.
I submit, Doctor. Thanks.
Thank you, Dennis. And I think it's also important to understand by the time you're bringing change management, at that point you're implementing. So I think the stakeholder management part needs to have been done very well as well, to have that buy-in. I think what Winfred was saying, where she said, if they don't do this, we shall arrest them. Buy-in is not about arresting. To use a system, the user must see, the stakeholder must see value in it. Again, like Winfred said, it's not just about working. So I think both of you, Dennis and Winfred, you've really given us context in a real life situation. So these slides are simply going through the change management in detail. So phase one, which was concerning with preparation, you have some simple questions to prepare you for that. So answer questions like how much change management does this project need, who is impacted, who are the sponsors, so on and so forth. So key outputs, you should have change characteristics profile, organizational attributes, the change management team structure. So then in preparing for change, you should have a sponsor assessment, structure and roles, impact assessment, change management strategy based. In phase two, which is actually creating the change, this is where we make the plans to change. Before you are brainstorming, but now you actually make the plans to come up with the change. So first is communication, actually articulating to the people that change is coming and it's coming now. The sponsorship roadmap, this is where it is implemented. Those sponsors of the change begin to actually do their work, engaging with the team member, with those who are being impacted by the change, those who are receiving the change. Then the training plan. So that training plan is now also, it's part and parcel of change management, because training essentially is saying this is how this thing is going to be used. So immediately the person knows this is how it is going to be used. Within again the phase two, you have the coaching plan. So this one outlines who you will engage with and equip managers and people leaders those who are going to lead the change in the teams. Then you have the resistance management plan. So whatever the case, you will have resistance. Yeah, whatever the case, you'll have resistance, you will have naysayers. But one, you must first have the proactive part. So the proactive part is to immediately address any fears. Then there's the reactive part. This is now when you respond to fears that come up as the change is happening. Then phase three is in reinforcing, because now in reinforcing means we are now active. The new process, the new system has been implemented. The new business process, e-business process has been implemented. So now, in this process, we get feedback from those who are doing their job, and we look at where the gaps may be. We correct those gaps if there is something not being done right. If there was something in training that hasn't been done right, it is readdressed. If there's someone who is not doing something right, that is also reinforced. But then also key point is to celebrate the successes. You reward those who have embraced the change. So here the key activities is measuring changes in behavior, looking at those who have changed, how many people are using the system, how much of the business process is fully now integrated into the e-business process. Then the other activities, corrective actions, is seeing how many gaps have you closed, how many people are now fully adopted, those who had failed to adopt, how many of those have you put back? Have you brought back to in alignment with the e-business process? Next is looking at compliance, ensuring that we continue. Compliance is basically looking at whoever is ensuring that what is supposed to be done is done. Then you have continuous or ongoing training and coaching. You have individual and group reconciliation approaches. You recognize the hard work people are putting in to embrace the change and so on and so forth. Success celebrations is publicly acknowledging anyone who groups that have hit the target, those who have embraced, those who have picked up the initiative, and so on and so forth. Any questions so far on change management?
Yes, doctor.
Yes, please.
Actually, I've just remembered a scenario.
Yes, please.
Many years ago, when I was still working with, I remember Triza Busulwa and others.
Mm-hmm.
There's a project that we implemented in Ministry of Health.
Yes.
This district hospitals. I don't know if there's anyone from Ministry of Health here. Apologies. But the project was, the intent was for the hospitals to go paperless, yeah, to automate processes from, for example, when you go to OPD, everything, like you go to the lab, you don't have to go there with the paper, like the way you see when you go to these clinics, like CCare, how things work there. You don't have to move with the paper. So this was also, we deployed this at many district hospitals. I think it was around 80 of them across the country. Now, we realized that this project was benchmarked from another hospital around, a private one around town. Yeah. So the ministry benchmarked and also said they will deploy it. And this was around COVID, at the time of COVID. Yes. But doctor, to date, from, I think this project was handed over in around 2022. Up to now, they have never been switched on any of the servers.
Okay.
Now, I was wondering, now looking at where we've come from benchmarking, planning the things, where could the problem be? Did they do, was the benchmarking done poorly? Was the change processes done wrongly, where stakeholders were not so much involved and engaged? Was training, by the way, even training was done, but people were assuring us that you guys, you're not the first ones to install such systems here.
Yes.
You will install them, and when you come later, you'll find them when they're not working. And it is true. I've gone to like them up country, just like when I was passing by, I see people still carrying books. So, doctor, in this scenario, where could the problem be, for example?
Yes,
where is the
where could the
problem
be? I don't think I would be the best person to answer it. But I think the first question is, remember when we were talking about benchmarking, the objective is to carry out an improvement. So what is the motivation for improvement? Yeah, I think that's the first question. For those who where the system is being implemented, who is motivated to improve? That, I think that would be because the only reason I would adopt something is if I am motivated that this is going to improve something. And at government level, I think that's quite a tricky part. Let's hear from Winfred, then from Triza.
Thank you, Doctor. I may need to try and answer Dennis's question. While we're beginning this module, remember we talked about system failures, that most of the systems do fail. And then when you do research, you realize that 70% of most of the digital initiatives that we always do, they always don't reach anywhere. They don't always meet their set objectives. That is what research has it. And so you realize that there are so many factors that contribute to system failures. It shouldn't be only one thing that the management, the change management was done poorly, or there was a problem with what. But the issue is, as we are trying to innovate and go in this world of digitalization, we need to first understand the technical aspects, the human aspects, the governance aspects, because all these things have to be brought together. That as an organization, you must be ready. There's what we call readiness assessment. But are we ready to do, okay, we may want to have EPS to go on in Uganda, but are our roads ready? Okay. We want to have this system work in the Ministry of Health, but we have the capabilities, the readiness assessment. And then there are so many factors, that's what I can say. You don't have to look at one thing that because we did benchmarking, so all is done, we shall make it. No, there are so many things that result to system failure, and mostly it is related to the human management. People bring technology to disorganize culture, but for me, I say technology is here to boost the culture, not to move it. I think that's what I can say, Doctor.
Thank you, Winfred. Teresa?
Thank you very much, Doctor. And I agree with Winfred. I also agree with Sida. I was actually part of that project, yes, of the health management system across all government hospitals, and supporting from the user end, the end user support, the issues that we got were majorly related to system performance. So the doctors, the medical officers, the receptionists, they were ready to use the system. However, the system had performance issues, and possibly not because the system was not good enough, but possibly the other factors like maybe the transmission, because now the servers were located in a different center. They were located at the NITA data center. And the hospitals. So there was probably a bit of latency. And you know, when a patient is waiting, you cannot keep a patient waiting at the reception, at the admission, when you can actually process and they move on to on paperwork, and you move them on to the next step. Maybe they go into, they call it the triage, picking up their data and all. So the issue that we got was the slowness. So like Winfred has submitted that the bit of readiness, because usually we can look at a system and the system works. You bring it in your environment and it totally fails to work. Why? Because there are other considerations that you did not make. So and that also takes us back to the assignment, the doctor you gave us, some of the mistakes that we make as IT when rolling out systems. Yeah, the different factors that we don't put into consideration. Yes, because the system works in a different environment and it's performing, you bring it to your same environment, to another environment, and it totally fails. So when the users reject a system, not that they are rejecting the change, but the usefulness that they are seeing is not good. So you're telling them, I'm giving you a system, it's going to ease your work, it's going to fasten the processing. But when they actually get down to the system, they find that the system is slower than the paperwork they were used to. So you would find doctors telling us, you know what, this is not working. Why? Because they would try, when they're diagnosing and checking for a drug, they go in to check for the drug, maybe some of the data was not entered and all that. So they go back to their paperwork and write the drug and give the patient, and then try now to put the data into the system, and it's a total, and then they get frustrated and just abandon. So those parameters, those other factors that, and I think it all goes down to the strategy, because I think many times. I've actually not, it's my first time seeing that the strategy has to have different sections, the one for applications, the one for infrastructure. So I think as IT generally, we are sometimes, we do not have, I would say, maybe a code of conduct, like how we see architects that or engineers, that before
Yes.
I think of building anything or implementing anything, I need to have the plan on paper. Even at my own workplace, when there is an issue, they can tell you we are implementing this. But when there was no initial design of that new implementation, but because another institution is doing it, maybe they're doing mobile money transactions, pulling from their phone to this, like because of competition, people are driven to move on to the next technology. But they have not assessed the environment we have. Because when you have a house, you cannot just say, I want an extra room, and you go
Yeah.
and add it to your house,
Mm.
which is different with our code of conduct in IT. When your supervisor says, I need this added benefit, we need people to be maybe to upgrade to Windows 11. You sort of just go ahead and do without assessing the actual resources on the machine. Can the resources on that machine handle the new operating system that I'm upgrading to? So we have that bit of misalignment, and I don't know how we can, and I guess it all goes back to architecture because we do not
Yes.
put the plan. I
Yes.
submit.
Thank you, Teresa. And I think you raise an important point. I think it's not yet appreciated what a module like this, the skills that it provides to professionals like you. And that at a certain point, your voices are heard by management. Because management may hear this new trend thing is going on, they want it, but haven't even those top people haven't even stopped to like Winfred was saying, do it, readiness check. Are we ready to take this on? Is it going to work in our context? Just to hear that professional voice before somebody simply comes and implements something without guidance from the ICT team. Again, I think it's also the idea that we are only seeing ICT as the people who come and fix the problem, but not the governance and management part. So thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Winfred. I think you've given us, again, very good context. So we want to look at the ICT life cycle in a company, some models that help us in the planning process. So this is a summarization of the ICT life cycle in a company. It starts again, if we go back to the scenarios that we looked at, business needs and business strategy, where we get our goals and objectives. This is where it starts from, yeah? And this is driven by the market conditions, the vision and mission statements. From these, the ICT is guided on business requirements, yeah? Business requirements. So from this, we develop our ICT strategy. The ICT strategy then gives us feasibility, the project feasibility. What are the ICT project goals? What are we, what is ICT, what gap is ICT going to fill? Or this ICT system or systems, what gap is it going to fill? Business case, what's the value? What improvement is this going to provide? What is the justification for this thing on the business side of things? Then decision, or this is where the part of the design and selection part comes in. Decision on what are we going to get, what package are we going to buy off the shelf or from a third party, and then or in-house development. Then you have the implementation where you actually use the package, you configure, test, roll out. Then you come to the users actually using the system. Then you come to the support and maintenance part. This is if you buy off the shelf. If it is in-house, there's the development section. Then you come back to, again, maintenance and support. Now, during maintenance and support, we provide feedback to our project, the evaluation part. Are we making any changes? Is there an actual improvement? Then we also provide feedback to, are we actually achieving our organization or our ICT strategy? Are we headed towards our ICT strategy? So this is the life cycle of the ICT life cycle in a company. So these sections are simply breaking down all those sections that we had previously: business needs and business strategy. So everything starts from strategy, what the business strategy that has been clearly defined with the business goals. This then address or give guidance to our ICT strategy and guidance on how we are going to develop our ICT strategy aligned to business goals. The ICT strategy then leads to the actualization of a project. And this project then also gives us two options. Are we going to purchase or build something in-house? Once that is implemented, we come to maintenance and support. So now you see where actually the ICT design selection and implementation part comes in. I think it gives you guidance, especially in context of strategy. This is something you could discuss on your own. Is planning a useless endeavor because development in ICT and in the political, economic, and social environments are moving too quickly nowadays? Do you agree with this statement? Give reasons for your answer. And I think some of the things that, especially the scenario Dennis gave us, gives us some good insight of what is currently happening. And also Winfred's scenario. I think these have given us some good context. Do we have anything to add at this point or ask? All is okay. So that marks the end of our session today.
Okay, Doctor, thank you so much.
Yes, please.
The lecture has been so insightful. Maybe one thing to note about the other number of the discussion, how are we going to conduct it? Is it supposed to be groups of how many people? Maybe if you can give just clarity on that.
Okay, let me first ask, how many are in the year 2 and how many are in year 1? We're total 12. No, but
Yeah.
you can still do it total 12. Is it okay if we have 2 groups?
2 groups, 6. Okay, that's okay.
It is okay.
Okay. So I think that is fine. Eh?
Okay, Doctor, thank you.
Thank you too. Do we have any other question or comment? If not, then I wish everyone a good weekend. Eh?